funny. Rock and roll, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. It's nice to see you again, Adam. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's been since the 40th anniversary of Metallica at the
Yeah.
Space Center, I think it was.
Chase, yeah, it was San Francisco. Yeah.
Such a good time. Well, man, thank you so much for joining me on I Ask No One. This
Yeah.
is episode 91 for good reason. So, cheers, man.
Cheers up, man. Hey, I like your cup.
Thanks, brother.
You bet.
So, I'd like to start off with a little musical fact of the day. So, happy Halloween, by the way.
Thank you.
Today is October 25th, 2024. Today in 1986, so that's what, 35 years ago? 35 years ago? Um,
That's closer to eight.
45.
Yeah, it's closer to, it's almost 40 years ago. So, eight,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Slippery When Wet was the number one record in the world by Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Bob Rock produced that. Bob Rock, of course, produced the almighty Black Album that's now sold 32 million plus albums worldwide, which you were a part of, and we'll get to that in just a sec. But were you a fan of the glam rock stuff that was going on in the 80s?
Um, I was a fan of rock. I'm not a big Bon Jovi fan. I respect the work, but it wasn't like what I was listening to. And really, in 1986, I'm sorry, I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and we get like sirens here all the time. It's the background music of our lives. Um, it's I I I respect the work. I'm a fan of like rock, so I was definitely more into something with like a harder edge if I listened to it. Um, but I do at that moment in time, and the reason that I wasn't more conscientious of what we know is now the Bay Area thrash scene is because basically I was in my own scene in New York, which was based on my kind of friendship and proximity to Rick Rubin, and that was like Def Jam Records and everything going on around Def Jam at that time. So in I maybe had a vague awareness of the untimely passing of Cliff Burton, which now, of course, is like I'm very aware of, by because of the work I've done. But at that time, I was probably more thinking about the fact that Run-D.M.C had just dropped their album Raising Hell, and we were going to make a movie with them, and the Beastie Boys album License to Ill was about to come out, and all the tracks that were going into that. So that's where my headspace was at this time in 1986. Um, and so yeah, I liked rock music. I liked a lot of stuff going on. I remember around this time going to see Aerosmith at Madison Square Garden. They were kind of on a coming back around because like Joe Perry had like rejoined the band and they're getting out there with an album called Done with Mirrors, which is um, just prior to like the kind of resurrection of Aerosmith with the albums that like Bob Rock was working on with them and John Colodner had kind of put them together with people. And so you start getting a Permanent Vacation and all those records start coming out. But I was just into them because they were like back around with Joe Perry back in the band, and so it was like It was, if you remember, it was a double bill, Aerosmith and Ted Nugent at the Garden, and it was still in the days that it was like not even uncommon. It was like part of the practice that like fireworks and stuff were being set off, thrown all in the arena. Like that was just like it's hard to imagine now, and especially post 9/11 and post everything that like that going on. But it was like you go to an arena and it was thick with the smell of marijuana, and it was like fireworks and stuff going off, like people lighting stuff off and throwing it. So it was a different time of that. But so that was kind of the hard rock stuff, more than
Yeah.
Bon Jovi, I would say.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny you talk about pyrotechnics and MSG because the only time I've ever been there, real quick, was Rammstein when it was their first time back in the States in 10 years. And they got the big penis that's got the fucking foaming white out of it, and then they got the pyrotechnics and stuff like that. So
It's good stuff, and it's like I love like theatrics like that. But
yeah.
that's like where my headspace was at. Although I see a lot of great Slayer stuff around you, and I do remember going to some Slayer shows. Again, in one sense or another, built around Rick Rubin. They were playing at L'Amour, which is a small rock club in Brooklyn, billed as the rock capital of Brooklyn, which it surely was. And that place, I mean, it was crazy. It was shows there were generally crazy anyway, but I mean, there was nothing really crazier than a Slayer show in that small space.
Yeah, you talk about Rick Rubin. You bring him up. I have to ask you because you brought him up. I mean, geez, producer. He's covered all sorts of different genres. I think of Audio Slave to
Yeah,
Slayer to some of the rap stuff. He's got a pretty good ear for music, right? I mean, he's really all feel is what they talk about, and it's an
yeah,
acquired taste for some people, right?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, I think he gels with some people and not others, and the ones he gels with are clear and evident. And there's a bunch of, somebody like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's like career spanning. You know what I mean? It goes on and on. And sometimes, with other people, I've heard people report that they don't get what he does, and and it doesn't work. But you can say that for any producer, really. It's a very close relationship. Rick has an unbelievable ear. He didn't come up like I've had the good fortune to be around both Rick Rubin and for a time Bob Rock. And if you want to compare things, and they both got to produce the same band at one moment in time, so or different moments of time, but they Bob Rock is like this consummate professional who is a terrific musician, and then he's an engineer, so he knows the entire studio, and then he's a producer who like has all these notes and thinks all this stuff. Rubin, I think, is whatever the opposite of that is he's not a great musician. He's certainly not an engineer, but he is a great producer. But I think he does it more through feel, and I think he just has a great sense of songwriting and song structure and how something should sound. And I think it's, through that, I think he figures like engineering, that's somebody he can like get somebody talented to do that and, get, and, musicianship. I don't think he feels like he's going to show any of these musicians how to play something. But certainly through feel, he communicates his thoughts, and his emphasis is always on the songwriting. So I observed it very young, although I didn't realize at the time where it was going. But I mean, he had this quality when I met him, which would take us back to the fall of 1982. And Rick certainly knew what he liked, what the type of music he liked. He could present it to you, and he could explain to you why it was great. And what he really was trying to do was put it across. He wanted you to feel the same way. He was like at that moment, a promoter of this idea of the music. So he kind of had this ability to feel the music and then try to connect with you with the music. And I think what I observed in its very early stage was probably a skill set that he employs even to the present day, producing these other great artists that he's worked with over time.
Wow, you go back to 1982 with Rick Rubin. That's nuts. I mean, we could spend the next few hours talking about those early days, but you also bring up Bob Rock, and again, we have Adam Dubin here, filmmaker, part of Metallica royalty, if you ask me, and with Bob Rock, who produced the Black Album. It was during that recording that he was
Yeah,
working with these boys. But he got to ask this Danish motherfucker a question,
yeah, yeah,
which leads me to today's quote. Bob Rock was like, "Yeah, we want that heaviness. We want to bring it." And Lars said to Bob Rock, which you got on tape, "If you want heavy, I'm your fucking guy." And that is the quote of the documentary to me. Year and a half of life of Metallica. Adam Dubin here of Das Moose, Brooklyn's rock and rollers, and you have a horror movie. It's Halloween time. You got a horror movie coming out here
yeah.
a little bit later into next year. Traction Park Massacre. So if you just want to fill us in, how the heck did that come about?
Well, I mean, it's funny that I always wanted to make feature films. And I've been making films since I'm like 11 or 12 years old. That was the dream. So I knew very early what I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily think of myself as a documentarian, and I wouldn't have at the time. I thought I'm going to make feature films, and along the way, I became a documentarian. But coming back to now doing like feature work, um, always loved the horror genre. The horror genre crisscrosses all over the place with heavy metal. I mean, heavy metal fans are often horror fans, and vice versa. Um, the Slayer stuff that you have around you has pentagrams. I mean, it's all horror type related. So um, I got with my best friend who, I was making films with all the way back in the day. And that's my friend Doug Demanda. And we decided, like, we're at this point in life. Let's just do the thing we always want to do, which is get and make a film together. And so we made this horror film, Traction Park Massacre. It's based on an idea that it's not, we didn't have the idea then, but in 1983, I mean, I go back with Doug also, we attended Action Park, which is a notorious park on the East Coast. It was in New Jersey, and it was like very unregulated. It was like young people. I mean, it was not even, it was like the reject from like Six Flags, you know what I mean? It was like the anti Six Flags. It was like not safe. It was a bunch of kids kind of running it for a bunch of kids. Um, People got hurt there all the time. There's now a documentary that exists that's really great called Class Action Park, which is one of the nicknames Action Park had. And the other nickname it had was Traction Park because people got hurt there so frequently. So we all went there, me and my 19-year-old friends, and we all got hurt in different ways. And we always remembered it as like kind of like, oh yeah, that funny time we went there to the park. We never went again. And I guess when the documentary came out, the park entered the kind of pop culture, thing that we have thanks to, things on the internet. And it just came up as an idea, like, let's do a horror movie, but let's do it at something like that action park. So Traction Park Massacre is that thing. And last week we just had a great showing of the trailer at New York Comic Con, hosted by Fangoria Magazine. And if anyone wants to look it up, it's like, Traction Park Massacre and Fangoria, and you'll find our the trailer to our film that, we want to put out. I mean, the film's done, but, there's a lot more still special effects work to do, but hopefully out for October 2025. So it's a lot of
Awesome.
fun.
All right,
Yeah.
next Halloween, October. That's a perfect time to release it. That sounds like a really cool premise. And yeah, the trailer's out, the teaser trailer's out, the website's out. I'll include links below to that. Right
Thank
here
you.
on I Ask No One. Yeah. So there's a song that you released on Moose, which was your debut LP, I take it, from Das Moose, and that's going to be used in the film. Why that particular song? I believe it was called what was it? Traction Park Massacre. Don't cry for me, huh?
Yeah. So I wanted a certain kind of song. I mean, there's going to be other music in the movie, and you know, as much great metal stuff as I can get, and we already have some other tracks going on in it. But I wanted, like, I just felt like this track that was like, I I love the Ramones. I mean, that's like a just I saw them the first time in 1983, and it's never left me. It's one of it was in a club, and it was one of the most powerful things, and it's just that was my Beatles, that was my moment and everything. And I love them. And if you might remember a bunch of years ago, or I mean, they're gone a while, but they did a song for a horror movie called Pet Cemetery, and they did the song for that. It's just a Ramones song. They shot it in the cemetery and everything, and it's like, and that's part of the movie. And it's basically because Stephen King also loves the Ramones, and that's from a Stephen King book. And I just felt like our movie's crazy, and it needed like a song that kind of feels like rock and roll high school. So I have a band in Brooklyn, Das Moose, and we just have some fun. We're a bunch of dads, and we just have some fun playing. We play the local club here, Lucky 13 Saloon, which we love. Get a good turnout, and I just kind of said let's do something in that vein, and it'll fit with what I'm feeling for the movie, and that was so the song, like the movie, or the title was Traction Park Massacre. Don't cry for me. It has this like kind of drum beat that rolls in similar to Rock and Roll High School, and then it just takes off as like a, a great 3 chord, 4 chord, like just vamp, like
Yeah,
where
it's
you're
punky. It
going
really
off.
is punky and it's a fun song. It was interesting to choose that for a horror movie, but you talk about the Pet Cemetery. Yeah, I could kind of see it.
We have a famous guest on that your audience might know, which is Alex Skolnick, who's a great friend of ours, and a great supporter of the band. He is the one of the two mighty guitars in Testament, and he lives here in Brooklyn. He's a friend, so he contributed not guitar because it's like he would basically just smoke all of us, but he did do keyboards, which he's pretty proficient at as well, and he's in the music video in a very funny capacity. The music video is funny. It's like kind of my Beastie Boys videos. It's just kind of a mix up of everything. And the nice thing is that the more important thing I think to recognize out of this is Alex Skolnick is doing the soundtrack, the actual score to Traction Park Massacre, which is going to be very reminiscent of. It's kind of a throwback. The movies, although it takes place present day, it's got a lot of feel from the '80s slasher movies that we all loved. And always loved the scores that John Carpenter, mainly John Carpenter, but others did. And some people who know music scores might know that. And yeah, you know what I'm talking about right there. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about.
Just lucky I happen to have this on my desk here.
Yeah, well, then that's the right thing to have. So it's like I gave that to Alex as an idea, and the first thing he turned out was the score to the teaser that we released to Traction Park Massacre, and he is moving ahead as we speak on the actual score to Traction Park Massacre. So it's going to have that feel, and I guess more keyboard based probably than guitar, although there are guitars in it. He's very capable. If anybody knows about Alex's career, he is a hugely accomplished jazz musician, as well as, of course, his ongoing work with Testament, which I saw them about 2 weeks ago in New Jersey, and they were terrific.
Oh yeah, they're still bringing out, they're still giving a shit, putting out new music, bringing it to the people. I love that too. It was crazy. I saw them with Dave Lombardo, formerly of Slayer, as the drummer when they came
Yeah,
through Town Ballroom, which was mind blowing, as
yeah,
the kids would say. But I gotta say, man, Michael Eckerfeld of Opeth, he did a score for a movie called Clark. Trent Reznor's resume is ridiculous, but Alex Skolnick, I did not see that coming of Testament. He's a brilliant guitar player. I've heard of Alex Skolnick Trio.
yes.
Not familiar with that stuff or his jazz work, but we'll certainly check it out, especially on Traction Park Massacre next year.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Unfortunately, I don't have like a tattoo of it anywhere, but it's going to be great. So
Nice. Well, you got the badass shirt there, the Das Moose.
I know.
And yeah, it sounds like just you get some of your boys together, a bunch of dads, and rock out. Hey man,
Rocket.
that's pretty fucking awesome. Score wise, we talk about scores. Are there any scores in 80s movies or any movies in general that stand out to you?
Um, the thing I'm basing it on is actually the score to the third Halloween movie in particular, which is the non-Michael Myers one, Season of the Witch, and it's like that movie's such a freak show, but that score is really amazing, and we use it. And if you listen to it, I'll tell you what it brings up. I've played it, played it like for my kids. They don't know anything about that stuff, but what they do know is Stranger Things. And basically, if if you listen to like those '80s scores, like Halloween 3, you would just go, "Wait a minute, is this the score to Stranger Things?" It's like they were pretty. I will say they adopted it very deeply into Stranger Things, which by the way I love. I think it's a great show and really well done. And of course, in the last season, a very incredible usage of Metallica's Master of Puppets, bringing it to an entire new generation. I can attest to that with my daughters because they know what I do, but it didn't like register or mean a lot to them until that happened. And when they suddenly saw, you know, that guy, the character Eddie playing Master of Puppets and like everything going on with that, they were like it all gelled, and now they've become like much better fans of the music. So I think it had a huge effect
It
on a
ups
lot
the
of younger
cool
people.
meter of your
Yeah,
dad level, right?
that's right, right.
Yeah, because Guitar Hero back in the 2000s, that's what it did for a lot of the younger kids with video games. And then what Stranger Things did with Master of Puppets, uh, what pop culture, you inject a Metallica song into a Simpsons episode or whatever. It gets an entirely new audience. And it's just crazy to know that the greatest American
Mhm.
band of all time, is just going to keep on growing. And speaking of Metallica with Kirk Hammett, oh, there you go.
Right.
Where's that from? Oh,
It's a pic
Hardwired.
from San Diego on the Hardwired tour in the
Sweet.
yeah,
Petco Park.
I have it around. And I got yeah, that was a good one. I do have a photograph here that's kind of cool. This is from the making of the Beastie Boys video, Fight for Your Right to Party. It's the only thing I have like that because I didn't even know it was shot, but that's a picture of me holding the Bible, which has all the script and the drawings in it. And of course, Adam Yauch is toweling off. And we just hit him with a pie in the face. It's in slow motion in the video. And and it's just cool. I didn't know that Sunny Bach is the woman whose apartment we used for the video, and she's a photographer, and she shot that. And I didn't know it until years later. I wasn't aware of anything other than getting the thing done, and uh, and then years later, I saw on her website she's selling that picture. I'm like, oh hell, I gotta. I mean, it's like wow, there really is like documentary evidence that I was there. It wasn't like a dream. It's like it's so it's cool. It's like yeah, I have that little memento sitting here. You know what I mean? Like you have things around.
Yeah. Yeah, us metalheads like to collect stuff and just keep the memories and these conversation pieces that we have, all
Yeah,
around here. Have you met Travis Kelce? I know he really champions that song these days, no?
I don't
I
know.
mean,
I
fuck the
mean,
Chiefs. Fuck the Chiefs. Yeah,
yeah. I don't want
but
to get into football rivalries, but I mean, I'm just like I think he's kind of a pop culture creation at this point, but it's like
yeah,
he's hey, a lot of sports people have adopted all kinds of heavy metal, and I just think it's great. I think it's amazing. I mean, Metallica is very popular. I hear I mean, go to any sporting arena, you hear a couple of their songs, and that's cool. But I think so the more the better. The fact that this stuff is part of our that world now that where once it was kind of excluded. I mean, heavy metal was on the fringe more. Now it's like, you're playing at the biggest sporting events and everything. I think it's pretty amazing. I love that.
yeah. I mean, last week's quotes with Sean Perry of the Four Horsemen Metallica covers. They're coming to play the inaugural I Ask
Oh,
No One festival coming up November the 15th, benefiting American Foundation Suicide Prevention. Really excited for that.
good.
And if you're in the town, or to our viewers, come on over, Town Ballroom, Buffalo, New York. This is only going up. So
Yeah.
I think this Western New York region, the Buffalo, New York, has a lot to offer. And they say,
Mhm.
keep Buffalo a secret. So there you
Yeah.
go. But last week's quote was immortality is what you create. And I came up with that quote. And I think that's really, really true. And what you've created, Adam, in your career, and the songs that we hear in stadiums, what you're just saying, it's going to stand the test of time, man. That's got to
Mhm.
feel pretty good. That forever is a long time.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Often the part of my career that is most remembered is my documenting in some form the music that somebody else has created. Even the Beastie Boys is like, I mean, you take a great song like Fight for Your Right to Party, and I mean, it's already a great song. That was, it was starting to catch on at radio stations all over the country. It needed a cool video. I didn't know like before that, like, oh, I'm gonna make this. I just knew like we gotta put our whole hearts into it and just do something as best we can. Me and my co-director Rick Manello, the late Rick Manello, who's passed on, my great friend. He
So
he
sorry.
yeah, thank you. He's we had this idea to like just do something that was more like a short, like a little movie because we were filmmakers to do a little movie rather than do um, something that was like just rappers in front of like a graffiti graffitied wall or something. So whether it's doing Fight for the Right to Party or No Sleep Till Brooklyn, or more obvious documentary work, which is, a year and a half in the life of Metallica, um, I just feel like I am enhancing in that sense. I'm taking music and enhancing it. It's already great songs. There's an interesting thing about a year and a half in the life of Metallica. I I got kind of brought in to maybe do this thing. It was not a sure bet by any means when I met them in November of 1990 that I was going to be allowed to stay there and film. It was very, very iffy, and I was like on, as they say from Animal House, double secret probation. So it was like anything, if they didn't like how it was going, I could be kicked out. But I kind of knew after about 2 weeks, I think it was, of filming, that they probably, they kind of like me here. They don't say it in words. What they do is they start hazing you like Jason got. So they start throwing stuff at me, cursing me. Anytime I turn the camera on, they would like start, giving me this right in my face, and then cursing. But I was not thrown out. And I know, we all know full well that if Lars or James didn't want me there, I wouldn't be there. So it's like, that's why there's some footage in there of like James threatens me with a big knife. And he also had like a taser stick at one point that he lit up and almost, he tried to like jab me with. So it was, you just kind of roll with it, and that's part of how it was. But it was a very tight group of people there. There was literally the four band members. There was a small crew: Bob Rock, Randy Staub, a couple of engineers, Zach Harmon, who is the all around road guy that we know him to be. He's nominally the bass tech, but in those situations he kind of was taking care of everything. And Fleming Larson, who's also late Fleming Larson, who took care of Lars's drum kit, and that was it. That's who was there in that studio making that record. Managers didn't show up. Record company, like, never, not even allowed anywhere near there. And so I felt like, okay, I'm a part of this small group, but my part is to document, and my part is to capture what's going on. About Similarly, about the same 2 weeks in, once we got past like drum, like, what they do is they get the drum sounds that they want, because mainly the first part is drum sounds. They got that, and then all four band members sit in the same room, and of course, as you know, there's great quotes that come out of that. Like, I mean, it's like James and Lars going at it over, like, playing one more, singing one more part, right? Just sing it, I need you to sing it so I can play it, and they're going at it. Um, Once that started happening, I started hearing these amazing songs. And at first, I'm like, I mean, is it just me? I'm so full, stuck in here that I just think this is sounding amazing. But kind of as I backed up and I was hearing, you know, The Unforgiven and Enter Sandman and Holier Than Thou and Nothing Else Matters and Through the Never and all these songs that are coming together, I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, this album's like amazing. Like, this is not just like another rock record or something. This is like, I really kind of had a sense. I'm like, you're kind of sitting here and hearing an amazing, like a rock record for the ages going down. And again, I take that as a very like precious gift. And my job is to document that and to get that, into a reality that can be shared with everybody else. So it was really kind of amazing to be there and to hear it. My portion of it was to, Bob's portion was to like record the best record. Mine was to document the recording of the best record.
Yeah, each of you had your own job, your own role to attack it,
Yeah.
not to become best friends or anything like that. But you search Adam Dubin Metallica, the only picture that comes up is just everyone just like, yeah, who's this guy? Whatever. But that was endearing in part because they trusted you to just hang with them for all those months of creating. You talk about record people not being allowed inside. That's news to me. I never knew that. It was
Mhm.
just those few people, and that's it. We have filmmaker Adam Dubin here from downstate New York City, there in BK, Brooklyn,
Yeah.
vocalist, guitarist of Das Moose, and director of Traction Park Massacre, coming out October of 2025. But we're talking about the Black Album and Metallica. That is pretty much like my Bible, man. Like
Yes.
what you captured, just for me personally. I was 15 going up to Toronto for the first time, '03 Sky Dome, and on the radio there's a song called Sabbath True comes on, the gak 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 gak. That
Yeah.
gak 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 gak. I've never heard anything like that in my life, still haven't, and I was stung, just like all of us, millions of metalheads. That was my moment, and that was my record, and just wanted to share this with
Beautiful.
you,
Thank you.
our viewers,
Thank you,
present
Kevin.
as a
Yeah.
heaven of
Yeah.
hollows.
I love
Metallica's
it.
Black Box. You could get your own too if you want. But um,
Beautiful.
thanks. Yeah, what people talk about with the recording of the Black Album though is how stressful it was for the band. There was a lot of fights and stuff like that. Was it stressful or was it more fun than stressful?
Well, t take it at its whole. I was brought in, like I said, November 1990, and I was told that, oh, this is going to take 4 months. You know what I mean? Because, as I said, I'm a New York guy. Come out here to Los Angeles. They're not even really from Los Angeles. They were already San Francisco guys, but they were come out here. It'll be 4 months, and you go back home in like February or something like that. Well, in February of 1991, we hadn't even finished all the drum tracks yet. So it was very clear that this takes a long time. That said, there's a lot of laughter in there, and there was stressful points because basically you have very um, talented people. Everybody involved there was very talented, including the engineers, trying to get things right and as best as possible. And so that tension is there. So yeah, I would say there was a lot of fights, but I would say the fights that happened, and let me stress that they were all, argument fights. Not there was no physical confrontation or even threat of that. It was just arguments. But it would always happen about a point about opinion, and people were stressing why they felt that this should be this way and not the other way. And in that creative tension is where greatness lies, and we see it not, most times we don't see it because there's nobody there documenting it. You just hear about it, maybe. You do see it. The other place you can see it, and you see it, is in the Beatles, because they had film at the time and they released it. And we've all seen the Get Back documentary, and while they clearly liked each other and stayed together for a while, they also argued with each other. Inevitably, I think that the Beatles broke up probably because they had done everything together that they could ever do together, and they now each became their own entity. And look what happened when they each went off. That's what they did. But you see the creative tension there, which gives rise to the creation of things. Same thing with Year and a Half of Life and Metallica creating the Black Album. There's tension there. Lars wanted to get a drum hit right, and I've had so many people tell me this over the years, that when he's trying to play that one drum part, and I forget which song it is at the moment, but he stabs the stick through the drum head and walks out in frustration. I've had so many drummers, really great professional people, tell me, "Oh man, I've done that." The only difference, there was no film crew there to film it, but they understand it. Why did he do that? Because he was so trying to get it right, and he kind of couldn't. And it's the same thing. We saw that moment where Kirk is trying to get that solo for the Unforgiven, and it's hard. The reason it's hard is because, like I said, if it was easy, anybody would do it, but anybody can't do it. Kirk Hammett wanted to do that solo right. There was that whole thing about he didn't do his homework. I think he did. I think any guitarist can relate to the idea of you're trying to you're trying to get your finger. You can think it in your head, and you can't get your fingers to do it. I think a ton of guitar players could have that feeling, and took a moment for Kirk to get there. But on the other hand, he did nail the solo. I always have gone on record saying I think the Unforgiven solo is one of the best solos he's ever done, because of it's not that it's the most complicated, it's that it fits with the overall music in a way that is just perfect. The way it rises, the way the inflection points are, it's so beautifully done that in my mind it's up there with any of the great solos in rock. If you think about, like Led Zeppelin and Stairway to Heaven. Yeah, exactly. And so the point is not that he was trying to get it, that he got it, that he got it, and that solo is just terrific. But I never got him getting the actual solo. I'd film different takes, and a lot of times I knew when to shut the camera down and just let him, have his time and have his moment. And so I remember backing off, and I didn't get the exact solo that's on record, but what I did put in there was the other solo, him trying to get it. And there's some really cool other stuff. I always like to put that in for the fans because, of course, the finished one we all have. I mean, we have that on the Black Album disc that you were showing. So it's kind of nice to have things in there that are like, oh, this was the one he tried to get, or it's like a different take. It's an interesting thing to put out there. So anyway, I tried to do both things.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. A year and a half in the life of Metallica. That's the documentary that everyone's got to check out. The creation of an American classic, no, nothing short of that. Of Wolf and Man is my alarm clock in the morning. You can imagine the gag, 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 all right.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
I didn't see that song represented too much in the making of. Is there going to be B tape that's going to be rolled out maybe someday, or do you have any memories of the oh
Mhm.
oh that part that
Yeah.
song?
I'll tell you why. They were going in to record what I think was like maybe 12 or 13 songs or something like that. 12 of them are on the record, I believe. Um, it okay. Thank God my recommendation was I want to shoot 16 millimeter film. Now there was video at the time. It was not very good, not nearly as good as what we have now. Um, but 16 millimeter film, I rallied for because I felt it looks eternal. I explained to them, Lars is very sharp. I mean, Lars knows film. He's very, very much on it. I said, let's make this thing look classic. Let's make it look like Woodstock. The reason people care about Woodstock, a music festival that took place well over 50 years ago, is because there's a film about Woodstock. Otherwise, it would just be this kind of legend of like a place, and Jimi Hendrix played, and all the kids overran the fences, and a lot of people were there. That'd be nice. But the film makes it eternal. And so I rallied. I was like, let's shoot film. Well, thankfully they did. Film is expensive though. And so they said, all right, we're going to shoot like half the songs. And they gave me ones I was going to do. And the others were like, if I caught things of them, that's fine. Because sometimes in a day when I was there, they would like work on this song a little bit and then switch over to that song a little bit. So the bits that are in there are probably when we went up to Bob Rock's studio for 2 weeks, Little Mountain Studio in Vancouver, they worked on like everything, and I was filming every day. So I just got bits of what, because they were basically adding sounds and ideas to the songs that were already kind of existing, like like in the beginning of The Unforgiven, there's that snare drum that kind of rolls in that sounds a little bit like a Western movie or something. Yeah, that exactly. These little things were going in. So that's probably where that got in. So I didn't really cover of Wolf and Man so much as some of the other songs, but it's still an amazing song. And it's interesting. I saw the Metallica play recently. Was it in Mexico City? They
Yeah,
had a battle. They in Mexico City, and they played it. So it's cool to hear them rolling it out sometimes. And yeah, James just the master with that. I love that guitar where I think it's the fretboard has like the changing guys on it.
yes, yeah.
Figure
He's
of
got that
the guy
guitar,
turning into the wolf. It's
oh,
like,
metal.
yeah, it's just so yeah. I would say it's a great one. It wasn't one of the ones I was focusing on. They just had me focus on other ones that I think they felt would be kind of the bigger songs off the record. I mean, Enter Sandman must have been obvious to them at some point, in the beginning. Thank God Nothing Else Matters, because that became the music video that I did. Um, Sad but True, they kind of knew that one was going to be a big one. I think the song that maybe there's two that I focused on that didn't quite get the same attention, which was I love Holier Than Thou. I loved it when they were recording it, and I just thought it was just and that opening, that long opening that goes on longer than you think it's going to go on, and it keeps going on. I thought before it like breaks into, it's like that is just amazing. And a couple of the other songs I got little bits of. I will tell you this: you asked about other footage when. they did the 30th anniversary box set of, yeah, of Black Album. Um, this is a rare gift for a filmmaker to be given back some of the footage to edit some more. And so they gave me back, not, we didn't have that much time. So they gave me, I just picked from the studio stuff, not the, there's even more stuff for the part two of Year and a Half in Life, and that's the touring stuff, but it was like way too much. So I said, just give me the studio stuff. I figured I've heard from so many people over the years who enjoyed the studio stuff, and they probably wanted more of that. So I picked certain tapes, and I just was like, let me put together some more stuff. I'm still working with my same producer, Jack Gulick, my same editor, Sean Fullen, same people from back when we did the original piece. And I just was like, let's go back in, and we released a bunch more. I said, let's do what we couldn't do then, because by back in 1992, we were under a deadline of like trying to try to keep it to 90 minutes because that's what a VHS tape could hold. And I said, we're not limited by that. A DVD can hold much more. So we kind of went off there. There was one thing that was really cool though in that. I said, I remembered this, and I said, give me the because I had to request these things from the archive. I said, transfer over and give me the footage from the Freddie Mercury AIDS awareness concert after the unfortunate passing of Freddie Mercury. There was a very big concert that went on at Wembley Stadium with Queen playing with like kind of all these people singing with them who loved, Freddie Mercury and Queen. And Metallica was invited in, and it was an interesting moment because I always felt that like at that moment in time, Metallica like was elevating. They were invited here, and they were first on the bill, which is in a way they were sort of at the bottom of the bill of these rock gods. But the fact that they were there at all, and they were in fighting shape, man. They've been on the Black Album tour for like 6 months already. So they just crushed it. And I felt in the eyes of like rock music and the world, they just like, you saw it right there. They kind of were like rising right in front of you. And I remembered this one thing that we'd shot that I wanted to get in there, which was a couple things. There was the rehearsal day with Queen, and then the actual performance. And I remembered I put a very truncated version of that into the Year and a Half in the Life, and I said, let's see if we can just release the whole thing of the performance there was a rehearsal performance of James with the guys from Queen, and then there was on stage of James with the guys from Queen playing Stone Cold Crazy. And I was just like, put the whole thing out there, even like at certain points, the camera, because we were fighting for our positioning with like the other camera people of the world, basically photographers and filmmakers of the whole world were in the photography pit. And I said, even if we were go out of focus at some point and we're zooming into focus, I said, let's just put it in there so that the fans have like the whole thing. I said, even the points that are you still hearing it, they still have the audio from it. I said, what a cool thing to just throw that in and give that, because the only alternative is it's going to go back in a vault and sit there for like ever. So I was like, let's put it out into the world. So that's what we did. So there is a little bit more footage out there.
Just incredible footage. Maybe at the 40th anniversary, the 50th anniversary, we'll get the rest of that.
Let's hope.
Yeah, it's just I never thought about that with was it 16 millimeter film that you were using for because it's got that certain epic I don't use that term loosely either. Epic. It's got that kind of a rugged old school Western kind of look to it, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. Um, James Hetfield, I mean, being on stage with him, you've seen him write music, you've seen him record vocals and vocal booths. I'm a yeller myself. That era of Metallica is,
Yeah.
man, I had a persuasive speech freshman year in college about why you should buy the Black Album. This James is just the almighty motherfucker. Is he the
Agent.
same guy he is on the M72 tour to an extent as he was in 91?
Yeah. I mean, I met him in 1990. There's certainly a lot of people. I talked to people who knew him earlier than that. Um, you know, he was evolving at that point. I'll just say that I think he's better dude for his sobriety. That was, I think sad but true's kind of about that. But I think he has insecurities like everybody else, and I think except he has them kind of. He's a guy who's up in public and everything, and so you know, his level of insecurity is um, kind of right there out in front of everybody. Um, I made a documentary called Murder in the Front Row, and it's about the earlier days. It's days I didn't know them in those days, but it's like, when they came to San Francisco, when Metallica came to San Francisco, and they showed up, and my friend Brian Liu, who is one of the authors of the book and talks in the movie, he always reminds me that he goes, dude, he goes, James was shy back then. He didn't like really talk to you and stuff. And so and of course the very famous thing was in the beginning with Dave Mustaine. James would sing the song and then he'd step back and Dave Mustaine would be the guy talking to the audience and doing the stage patter. And then they'd start the next song and James would sing. So I think, I met James Hetfield at a point in his evolution. He had obviously become this front man who could, kind of, tear up a crowd, I think, from Master of Puppets onward. I mean, he's just like, he's now this other James Hetfield who kind of has, the Lemmy mustache and beard and everything. And and he seems a lot tougher and everything. But I think part of it, there's an insecurity there. There's somewhere in there's a shy kid. I think alcohol can mask a bunch of that. But I think ultimately alcohol is not a real great lifestyle, and it's like and I think James is a far better person, the guy that I, known before and after. This is a person that I think has a deeper attachment. I think it was there in him. I just think he's become like a different person and a better person and an evolved person. There's also a basic nice guy in there that was always there, but I think at a certain point in his life, I think he had to put on this bit of a tough guy image, but that's all right. He was in a macho business in a tough guy world. You know what I mean? It's very. I always remind people that I've seen like the locker room stuff there, and like what I'm saying is them getting ready. It's closer to an athletic performance, like a bunch of athletes going out there on a field, than it is to a musical performance. I mean, it's very like kind of like football players ready to go out there and like take on the other team. So I just think but what's important here is that James evolved to the point, and I think and you've seen it. I'm sure you were at the show in Buffalo a few years ago, and
Yeah, sure
you're
was.
from the area.
22.
I was there as well. And
Awesome.
by the way, that was when they showed. I remember they showed the footage from Stranger
Stranger
Things,
Things.
Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
But I love the message James gives from the stage now, which is, if you're here, you're part of the Metallica family. And I think it's so important to say that, and to say that, that if you're part, it just does away with all these things. People get divided over ridiculous things, and whether it's kind of stupid racism or politics or all the things that people find to divide one another. And James says, no, if you're here, you're part of this family, you're part of us, you're part of the Metallica family. I think the world's a better place for that kind of message and for the music that they make that brings everybody together. So if I could add one more point to that, I was in Mexico, not that long ago, what is it, a month ago or something. And I was fortunate to attend. I made friends with the Mexitallica chapter of the Metallica fan club. They have chapters all over. The Mexitallica chapter is just a great chapter. Wonderful folks that I've met over the years. And they had a party because Metallica plays on the Friday and the Sunday. So on the Saturday night, they threw a big party in Mexico City. And it was beautiful because when I went there, they had invited all the people from all the other chapters who had flown from all over the world to be there. So aligning the walls with all the flags of all the chapters that were there. And so there was Saint Germany and I forget the name, the Polish chapter and all. I mean, just it was flags all along the wall. And I said, yeah, this is the realization of James's message. We all love Metallica and we're from all over the planet and we can all hang out. And that's the beautiful thing of it. That's
That's
who
so
James is now.
so true. Yeah, it's communal.
Yeah.
It's when you go to these kind of things, and
Yeah.
54 times around the world for me from '03 when I was 15 to I'm 36 now, you know what I'm saying? And I had the
Nicely done.
we didn't we didn't have the pleasure of crossing paths, but I was in the M72 here. That's my
Yeah,
little
man. That's it, man. You're doing it.
I had this little pass here, and
Yeah.
James, with suicide prevention and
Yeah.
what All Within My Hands is doing. I lost my dear buddy Mike Holden in 2018, and my cousin in around the year 2000. And
Yeah.
just when James has the mic, he's got that platform. You got the 70,000 people that are in the palm of his hands,
Yeah.
on this M72 Trek, and it's no one commands a crowd better, and anyone who says different doesn't know shit. Honestly, I mean,
Yeah.
he'll just get everyone, and you're really a part of that thing, and that's so true. Being in this Metallica family, the world seems much, much more smaller when all of us are together. And he says you are not alone in those dark thoughts. I know what you feel, and you are not
Right.
alone. Like I'm affiliated with American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. For every new subscribe to the I Ask No One podcast, I donate $10 to AFSP, my own personal campaign. We're approaching 13,000 with a goal of $1 million here sometime soon. And I think talk saves lives. Just getting the word
Yeah.
out about it, and what James does and the platform that he has, amazing. And
Yeah.
Adam, if you don't mind me asking, have you been impacted by suicide with people that you know or your own self? If you wouldn't mind just sharing some words on that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So someone I won't name, but who uh, took his own life. It's a long time ago. He was one of my core group of friends who I grew up with, and I made movies with. If you were a friend of mine and my friend Doug in the early 80s, then you would become a actor in our movies. And so this fellow was an actor in our movies. And, we loved him and we hung out with him. I have a million memories with him. And unfortunately, he hit that dark place in his life. And I remember the time. It just sort of happened very quickly. And over the years, and I'm sure you've had this feeling too. You spend a lot of time going over in your head, could I have done something more? You know what I mean? You could I've seen something, could I've done something? What I've come to in my own sense is I have to just take myself back, put myself in those shoes and go, dude, you were 20 years old. You were 20 when this event took place. And you're aware when you're 20, but you just don't have you don't always have the life skills to recognize um, someone's the depth of someone's pain that suicide is like a threat at that point. And you just, you get, oh yeah, my friend's not happy. Oh yeah, my friend's drinking a lot. I mean, we've all had that, and that's what was happening in this case. And you just kind of took it as like, oh well, whatever, man, he's just getting hammered. Um, we're just too young. We're just too young, and I think that um, you also have to forgive yourself a little bit as like, you just tried to do all you could, and you're just not in a position. But that's why I think there's way more awareness now. I mean, if I think of where we were back then in like 1984, it just was like there wasn't, I'll say it just to capitalize on what you're saying. There wasn't a James Hetfield up there saying this stuff from the stage, and that might have helped. It's like if there was somebody, not James at that point, because he wasn't the guy at that point, but somebody, you know what I mean, talking about this, maybe that would have been more helpful in us thinking about it, that it's okay to approach somebody about this, to try to do something. Maybe it would even have somebody do something on somebody's own mindset. It was just sort of at that time, you just pushed through. That's what it felt like. It was like, if you have bad times, well, just push through it. And if there's like, at that time, there was really just like, you sort of two choices. It was marijuana and alcohol. And you would just mask everything with those two drugs that were readily available. It's a hard thing. I've thought about it many times over the years. Obviously, I'm affected too. I could think of other people too, um, but this one guy comes to mind. And yeah, we always, when I get together with my close friends, including the guy who I made the movie with, we always like, we do this. We raise a glass to our friend. Uh, from not all the time, but we when we want to remember him, we all raise a glass. So, let's do that for like we've all lost somebody, and let's hope that it's not any more somebodies. That's the important thing.
You honor your friend, and I'll raise a glass to
Cheers.
that, my friend.
Cheers up. Drink up.
Yeah, it's depression has no face. You don't know what people are going through, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing these kind of things.
Hmm.
Because I myself, I'm on, daily medication with for major depression, and people have got their own vices, and you got your things that you feel good about doing, like what we're doing right now. It makes me feel good and alive. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, with depression and anxiety, Chester Bennington, like
Yeah.
no one saw that coming, right? Chris Cornell,
Yeah.
Taylor Hawkins with the substance abuse, you know, a little smile to someone, a stranger. You don't know what that smile will do to someone. It can make their day, it can
True.
make their year, it could save their life. So if you know someone who's struggling, the 988 crisis lifeline's been such a help for hundreds of thousands of people ever since it rolled out in 2022. So the number's 988. Adam, thanks a lot, man. Um, and I mean, just going back to Hetfield, I got to ask while we're on that topic, one last thing. When he
Sure.
attacks the microphone, when you were in that vocal booth, right up in his grill, hey, I'm your line. He's just right there. I mean, how was that process, the minutes leading up to that? Was he just like, I mean, how was that?
I'll give you this. I mean, he is, an amazing creature. And I'll tell you why. First of all, thanks, eternal thanks to James for trusting me because the first, in the first few minutes of our meeting, he did not want to be filming anything, and he was, right ready to throw me out of there. Um, it was kind of a jump ball as to whether I'd even, be allowed in there. But, vocals came months and months into the process. And by then, I think he trusted that I would just honor the fact that I was there. I always knew that I've said this before. I knew when to turn the camera on, but sometimes I also knew when to turn it off. And it's, if I got a couple of takes of a vocal, like I filmed them a couple times going at it, I don't, some other cinematographer might have said, okay, I'm just going to stay on this and stay on this and stay on this until you basically wear out your welcome. Sometimes you got to know when to pack it up, know that somebody's doing something. Vocal is a very intimate thing, and you got to know what to shut the lights down, let them get it. Um, I would get a few takes, and if I felt I was good, I was good. As it happened in Nothing Else Matters, I actually got the one that they used. You don't always get the one that they use, but I got the one at the very end after the guitar solo when he kind of winds the song down. If you notice, that's one unbroken take, and the reason it fits is because it's exactly the take I got on camera is the one that they used in the actual song, which is amazing. And I love that he comes off the mic, he like nails it, comes off and looks at Bob and he smiles because he knows he got it. That smile is everything to me. With Sad But True, yeah, I mean he James is right there. But this was kind of a funny thing. James, I think he doesn't do what a lot of other singers do, and Bob Rock noted it. And I don't think I caught this on film, but I remember it very well, and so I'll tell you what it is. He's hungry, so he orders to the studio like everybody would order takeout. He ordered like a rack of ribs from like a rib joint or something. Rack of ribs comes. James devours this rack of ribs, like he's just like goes off. He tears them up, and then he's like he like burps, and then he's like, all right, let's go work. He's like ready to go record. And Bob Rock is just like this, because Bob Rock has worked with like John Bon Jovi, an exceptional vocalist, and like um, all the guys, Bob had a huge history. Just was like marveling at this, going like everybody he knows who in rock who had to do vocals that night would have refrained from eating, let alone eating something as heavy as like a rack of ribs. James destroyed the rack of ribs and then walked into the vocal booth and proceeded to do vocals. Probably not on Nothing Else Matters, as I remember, probably on a bit heavier of a song, but
Got
still,
barbecue sauce on his face, just
yeah, in his beard and everything. And
yeah.
he's just like walked in. He's like, all right, let's go. And I think it's more from like the Lemmy school than anything else of vocals. It's like, doesn't matter what you did that day. You walk in and you do it. But I would say, there were probably like vocalists perhaps trying to get a more refined thing going on that it's like a bit of they have maybe more ritual to it, like they may only sip tea with honey and do all this other stuff for their throat. But James kind of just went in there and just like muscled that vocal around and got and maybe that gave it the grit that he was looking for. You know what I mean? It did it. So I always remembered that about that. And as I've come to know other vocalists, I was yeah. In fact, I've never seen and I've never heard of another vocalist doing that except for James Hetfield.
That's awesome. I love that little piece. I'm sure no one's ever heard that before about the ribs, devouring ribs. All right, let's go do some fucking vocals.
Yeah,
And what it says in the documentary, again, we have Adam Dubin here, filmmaker and vocalist guitarist of Dawson Moose out of Brooklyn, New York. Very grateful for having you on, man.
you bet.
But Lars, he would record at night and then James would go in the morning. Is that right? I mean, is there one word that you would use to describe Lars Ulrich? You know, um,
Um, it's kind of about the vibe, like the fucking vibe, right?
it's a good one.
Yeah, Lars is just, yeah, I mean, if there's one word, it's amazing. I mean, this guy's just amazing. Let me put it this way. When when I when I met Rick Rubin, I met a very focused young man. He was 19 years old, and he knew what he wanted to do and who he was. And I always say I didn't meet another person like that until I met Lars, and that was probably 8 years later. Um, and Lars was focused. The Lars that I've heard about from when he was 18 was like the same thing. He knew what he wanted to do, and he was like focused, and he's focused on getting a band together and then making that band as big as possible. Brian Lou always reminds me he Lars back then talked about it's not if we get famous. You talk about when we get famous, when we get management, when we play such and such a the Cow Palace or something. He was always on a when thing. It was sort of self confidence, but it was like tied with real like diligence of like pushing ahead to do something as well, not just like waiting for things. So when I met Lars, he's that focused individual, except now he's like kind of in a powerful band, Metallica, and he's still like driving it forward. And it's so part of it is his ability musically to play. And I think he I think again his mind is thinking of stuff musically that it's difficult. He doesn't play anything straightforward. He plays in a very different kind of way. He doesn't lay back. There's no backbeat. He's like on it, but it's it's very progressive. It's very out there. No one else drums like that either. I mean, Lombardo, you mentioned before, Dave Lombardo, the great drummer of Slayer and other things, and I saw him with Testament. Amazing drummer, just incredible, but completely different. A thrash metal drummer, but completely different from Lars. And Dave has that different kind of syncopation and style that is just amazing and works has so well with Slayer. And also he could sit in with I saw him with Suicidal Tendencies. He could play that. I saw him with the Misfits. He could play that. Testament. It's amazing that he can bring that in. I saw him with Metal Allegiance one night. I mean, just stunning. But that's not Lars. Lars is a different drummer, and it's like Lars can think of all this stuff, and I think sometimes he even thinks of stuff that it's hard to do, that he can't even readily do, and yet he attempts it, and then eventually gets it. My feeling about Lars is he's become a better drummer, and I really I heard it most distinctly when I started watching them on tour on the Hardwired tour, the Hardwired Self Destruct. Um, I started listening to it, and I was like, wow, there's especially on the song Atlas Rise. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God. I was like, listen to the pocket on that thing. Listen to the swing he brought into that. I it's amazing to think because I mean, Master of Puppets is really a masterpiece in itself, but I think he's gotten to be an even better drummer along the way. Like I can hear a progression. And so I just think, he's amazing behind the drum kit playing, and he's amazing driving the band from a business point of view in all the things that band has to do. Um, so Lars is fully amazing to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and even on this M72 tour, you see how he's really slendered down and he's taking his vitamins, he's eating his vegetables, and I'm a drummer. He attacks the drums with you talk about these feral twins that are in your upcoming movie. There's a feralness, if you will, about him, just that when he finishes a song, it's a and it just stands right
Yeah.
up. It's just like it's amazing to see. What's the biggest compliment that Lars Ulrich has ever given you, Adam?
Oh, there's the fact that the biggest compliment is that is it's not spoken. It's the fact that I'm still here, doing work for them even now. That's it. Nobody has to say anything, but the fact that you're invited back is always the biggest. But there was one, and I'll tell you what it is, and I wished I recorded it. Do you remember? I don't know. You're a young man, but it maybe there was originally when we had answering machines, when we had phones before we had these cell phone things. Yeah, there was a I would go out, I'd have my phone, and if your answering machine had a little cassette tape in it. That's how it worked. And it was like you would sometimes have to change it if you wanted to keep something, but usually it would just kind of get to the end, it would record over the previous messages because you'd listen to them, you'd be like, all right, I got that. And then it would like record over. I wish I had kept this one. The one was that when I finished editing um, Nothing Else Matters, this is what I would do. I would finish in the edit room, make a VHS tape. Metallica was still on tour on the Black Album tour, and I would take that videotape and I would send it by FedEx to some place in the world where the band was. I would call Q Prime, and they would tell me, okay, he's going to be like by tomorrow he'll be in someplace in like Indonesia or something like that. And so or Japan or something. It was very far away. And I would put the VHS in there and ship it off to wherever it was. And it's very funny because I talked to Tony Smith, who was the tour manager at the time. He said, and he's British fellow, and he goes, "Oh, right, right, very good for you." He goes, "I was on the other end of that," and he get this tape, and he said they would be in like one of the other countries in the world where, of course, our country is NTSC, but in that country would be PAL or CCAM or one of the other formats. And he'd have to try and find I actually have a VHS tape here for you kids out there. And he'd have to find a player for this in some foreign country at like 3 in the morning. And so he'd have to do that. But once one was found, Lars would then watch the tape and send back comments. There was no email, so he'd call me up. He woke me up at whatever hour it was, and I would get these comments. But one time that I was out and the answering machine answered was when I sent what was the final edit, and they were happy with the edit. And I got this phone call. And since he didn't get me on the phone, he left a message. So when I got home that night, the message was from Lars. And it started off like when the thing picked up, it was like, woo, woo, dude, love it. And I think he was on with Peter Mensch as well, the manager, and they had conference called and called me. And since they didn't reach me, they had just left this great message. We love it, dude. You did it. And I mean, Jesus, your heart leaps when that happens. And but what was important to them too at the time was that I was on the Black Album, I was the third single release. So they released Enter Sandman. Then that was the great video by Wayne Isham, who I just happened to see last week. And then The next video was The Unforgiven by Matt Mahern, a photographer and filmmaker who made that great, kind of very moody, very dark
Amazing.
video,
Yeah.
Unforgiven. Yeah. And the third one was Nothing Else Matters. Now, they didn't want to shoot another concept video because they had shot, the two others, Enter Sandman, Unforgiven, and they were very expensive. These videos at the time were mini movies. They cost, bottom price was $250,000, and upwards from there it could be $500,000 without any problem. And they didn't want to shoot one. But the other thing was, it was like a weird song because without saying the word love, it's kind of ballady, it's kind of love song. Nothing Else Matters. So it's like a little bit like oh, we don't want to do something for that. And they wanted to use the footage from the doc from that we'd shot all this footage for the past year. They wanted to see if they could put some of that into action. And let's face it, they'd spent a lot of money gathering it, so it was a good idea to do it. So I spent a few weeks editing that, and when I sent out the tape, the fact that Lars was happy with the tape, number one, made me thrilled, but number two was also they didn't have to go and do a concept video, which, by the way, they had no time to do. They were on tour all the time, so they didn't want to have to take like 2 days off someplace and go shoot that. And so yeah, it worked out well for everybody, especially me, who got to do this video and put it together. So I'm very grateful for that. And yes, that was a wonderful compliment from Lars. I'll always cherish the memory of that tape that I should have saved.
Yeah. Well, it's the memories, right? The best
Mhm.
things in life are not things, right? It's just those
That's right.
experiences, the memories, and that is wonderful, I would say. I have the VHS tape, a double tape that was given to me by my buddy Keith Good, who crowd surfed in front of Cliff Burton back on the Ozzy Osbourne tour. Fuck yeah, Keith. I got
Well
the year
done, Keith.
and a half, VHS tape right up there. I'd grab it, but I'm not going to. But that was a wedding gift to me last year. I got married last year. My uncle Chris mentioned Nothing Else Matters in our vows. And hey, man, you were a small part of that, Mr. Dubin,
Thank
or
you.
as Jean Pellerin would refer to you as Doobie. Uh,
Movie.
yeah, he's a funny guy. But
Yep.
Lars or James, I gotta ask you, who was crazier during the recording and the tour of the Black album that trekked the world as a well-oiled machine? Was I know it wasn't quite Motley Crue
No.
craziness, or maybe there was.
Well, if I didn't see anything like that. I did, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's I have to say it's hard for me to I don't know I can answer that in the best way. Um, I don't really talk about some, seeing all kinds of craziness. I don't talk about it. I could just say that everybody was drinking back then, and it was during the Black Album tour, and it was okay. There was definitely like drinking and carrying on, but I don't want to get distracted by that, and I'll tell you why. It's because I have a feeling, at least from what I read and heard about like Motley and some of the other crazy bands that went on, it was like the craziness was so out of control, I'll say, and they seem to show it in their Motley Crue, at least in their movie and stuff like that, that it actually infected and went into the stage performance. Like they would just be high in various ways and just continue on for the day. I mean, and I will say this, Metallica. Let's not get too distracted by Alcoholica and all that stuff because the music always came first, even with all the craziness going on. So would they have a few drinks after the show? Yeah, sure. Everybody, kind of wound down a little bit. But I gotta tell you, though, I never saw, not once in all the days that I've been around them then, um, anybody so hungover the next day that they couldn't play. Nobody drank on a show day going into the show, not even a beer at like 3 in the afternoon or anything like that. It was like you went into that situation because again, I would say it was closer to an athletic performance than it was a musical thing. The music they know how to play that music. They're great. But it was closer to like a um if we remember the Black Album tour, there was no opening act. The closest thing to an opening act was a film that I made that would play prior to the tour. A lot of bands wanted to be the opening act. There was
Amazing film, by the way.
thank
Fucking
you.
awesome.
I mean, that was actually the first use of the footage where they were like, they saw that like this footage actually cuts together. You know what I mean? It was before the Nothing Else Matters video. So there's a little film about 15 minutes long. And the idea of the film was just to kind of, you remember with the Black Album, they were getting a lot new fans, a lot of people who might not know the history. So it was a little history lesson of Metallica, and then a bunch of making of stuff of the Black Album. And then the film would end, and the lights would go down, and the stage kind of the way the lighting rig was, it would open up. So you'd hear the opening riffs of Enter Sandman. That's what they open with, if you can imagine. And they just like and the stage, the lighting rig would lift and open up. It's in some of the films, and they'd be there, and it was like boom, they'd be coming at you a million miles an hour, and it was just fantastic. So going into that, those guys were stone cold sober. They were like, they didn't want to mess it up. So I don't remember it as like what they spoke about. They would always say like, I think it was when they toured like with Ozzy, and that was their first big tour where they were in arenas. That was probably a crazier times, and I wasn't a part of it. And that's only like what they've said in interviews and stuff about it. I remember it much more as they had something to prove to the world, and they were going out there to do it. That's my
Yeah.
that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
No, we're not going to stray off course here. Maybe
Mhm.
someday a biography or something will get written. Lars is quoted maybe back in 2013 or 14. He's like, I don't know if I want my kid to know what happened. I don't know if I want my kid to know what happened on our off night in Portland, Oregon in 1992. And he said that.
That might be, and I can understand that for I mean, there does everything need to be out there? It doesn't need to be out there. You know what I mean? I think again, it's like my true north is the music, and I think it's theirs also. So for me as a documentarian, um, I actually filmed them in Portland. No, sorry, I filmed them in Portland. What was it? This is Maine. It was Maine I was in, right? Not Oregon. I never filmed there. But I I just remember it as like just stay true to the music, and that's what they seem to do. And I was like, that's the real story here, and that's why when I made Murder in the Front Row, which was my film, I'm blessed that they were in it, but it was my thing. I never got sucked into like the sex and drugs aspect of the rock and roll because I didn't feel it was there in the thrash metal scene as much as what I saw was a brotherhood in the scene, and so I cover that. And I think staying with the music has been a good direction for me over the years as a documentarian, and I'll continue with that. That's why I never could have. I'm not dissing on Some Kind of Monster. It's made by two very powerful filmmakers, but it's not my kind of filmmaking. I could never have made a film like that, and frankly, it when I've seen it, and I only saw it a couple times, it hurts me a bit to watch it, and that's because I know the guys, and so it's painful for me to watch them go through that, and I never could make a film like that. It's just not my kind of filmmaking, but all props to them for wanting to put that out. But just different. I kind of stick with the music. I feel like that to me is like my lane and where I'm good at. So I'll do that.
Damn right. Damn right, man. Enough said, especially with what you're doing at Das Moose and what's coming up. I'm really looking forward in particular to hear Skolnick's score in the movie Traction Park Massacre, October 2025. Bring it on. Um, we're closing up here soon, man. Paul Rackman is a previous film director. He's a previous guest of I Ask No One. In fact, he was one of the first guys that ever said yes to come on and shoot the shit with me. So
Good.
kudos to him for giving me
Yeah.
that kind of opportunity and the stories that he had about the Alice in Chains music videos and different work that he's done with the American hardcore scene and um, uh, the girl Kyle from Child's Play 2. She used to be a punk rocker, which is just crazy. But when the Metallica were recording Black Album, weren't Guns just down the hallway or some shit, or Alice with Dirt?
They were not, Guns was not down the hallway. We were in one-on-one studios in North Hollywood, California. Um, I don't know if that's a legend or something, but I know I could say it was not true. There was we kind of maxed out that studio because sometimes Metallica was working in the big room and then like sound editing of editing of drum tracks and things were going on in other rooms. So we kind of used the whole studio. I filmed that at one point in Year and a Half in Life when I go from the main room and I wanted to show all the work going on, and I actually did an unbroken take where I went into the little room, or I can't, it might be the other way, but I know I did it to show that all this work was going on. But what is true is that Guns was working on Use Your Illusion at the same time. And so they were going on in whatever the studio in California, sorry, in Los Angeles, California, that they were working in. And we would, you'd hear things. There was one day, and there was visits to the studio were very infrequent. Metallica were very focused on making this record. Once in a while, they went out, but mostly they went home and went to bed and came back the next day. It was not, they were really kind of, if there was a show on that they wanted to see, they might go to that. But in general, they were pretty studious about making this record. And of course, the funny thing was, James would show up at noon, ready to work. That was true. Lars would show up at about 3, 4 in the afternoon. And as James says in the thing, it would be about, he did have his espresso and he'd have to eat and then he'd do this. And it was like 6 o'clock by the time he got a drumstick in, and maybe later, by the time he was late, by the time he got a drumstick in his hand. That caused a creative tension. And it's funny. I mean, James made a joke of it, but it really was true. Now, it was better once the drum tracks were down. James could show up at noon and get a guitar in his hand and start laying down rhythm guitar and a solo in the case of Nothing Else Matters and vocals. But it was kind of a mismatch a little bit when they all had to get in the studio for the drum tracking. Um, Guns was down the hall, but once I remember Matt Sorum showing up just to say hi, and he was there for like a few minutes in the beginning of a session, not when they were recording, and then leaving. And we were pretty friendly with Matt at the time. And he was not unwelcome. It's not like whatever it was. He stopped by, said hello, and that was it. Don't remember any other guys like that. Ross Halfin showed up one time to do a little photo shoot in the studio. And I remember that. The managers never showed up except at the very, very end at the mixing studio. They showed up because now they had to get some tapes of the stuff to take it to radio. And never, ever, ever was there anybody from Elektra Records anywhere around there. So if anybody comes in and says, I was there, they were not. So it
Very
just wasn't.
interesting. Yeah, no one from
Yeah.
Electra over there. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I could talk to you about the Through the Never Full Arsenal shows. I was there in Vancouver in the Snake Pit. Um,
Amazing.
IMAX camera right in front of my face. I'm actually at the climax of that film. There's a person headbanging when he goes to hit
Yeah.
the thing. That's me damaging my spine for the rest of my life, because
That's
if an
it.
IMAX camera's in front of me, man, I'm gonna fucking bring it. And
Give
at
it up, man.
24, 25, it was great. But we're the
I
twins.
docu I
Yeah.
documented that one. Yeah, it was fun, man. That was a fun show. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing any kind of footage yet from M72 tour that's going to continue right through, the States and into Australia, New Zealand next year. That's going to be awesome. Um, I'm saving best for last.
Go
So
for it.
I wanted to show you something that you actually filmed,
Okay.
and it has to do with Jason Newsted.
Love Jason.
Before I put this in glass,
Yeah.
this is a Jerry Jones 1992 bass
Okay.
that Jason used on the Black album. He used this.
Amazing.
He's
Wow.
selling off some of his stuff, and I can't believe I'm holding it, touching it. I know him being a musician, he'd want people to play it.
Yeah.
I play little drums. My brother Leonard doodled on it, but this will be behind glass soon. Is Jason not the most metal motherfucker you've ever met in your life?
You know what? Here's what I'm going to say. I love Jason. Still in touch with him, which is amazing, and that is an amazing piece of rock and roll history that you have in your hands. It's beautiful. I think you should play it. Put it behind glass if you want, but I think you should play it sometimes. And
That's I just did that. I did it. Here we go,
Jason,
right?
Jason was amazing, and he was, he's the most down to earth, and I think because he's like, as he said it, he's a fan also. He's a fan who somehow got into the band that he was a fan of, and earned his place. He, for whatever else it is about the music, um, and songwriting or whatever, or turning down his bass on Justice or any of that stuff. Forget about all that. Every night he would prove why he's in that band because nobody gave more, and he would stay afterward and shake every hand and autograph everything, and just he knew what it meant to the fans to have a connection to that band. I've any band would be lucky to have somebody like Jason in there working that hard, and he proved it every single night. And in a way, he still does. He keeps his connection, to the band. He's not very vocal about it, but he he still loves the band. He's still a fan. He still wants them to continue to go on. He loves seeing when they um, get all these achievements. Of course, yeah, Jason, big ups, yeah, Jason, and he's he's just an amazing player. And I was fortunate to get with him a couple of years ago and help him film something that he needed filmed. Always glad to see and talk to him about it. He wished me well on the movie, which is terrific. And I, there was something that I did with him that I didn't do for anybody else in Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica, and that's because I realized as I was filming Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica that just inherently there was less footage of Jason than anybody else. I went up to his house in Walnut Creek. You got it. And I just wanted to do something with him that I spent a little time with him where I kind of could get a little more of his personality. And I didn't go to Lars's house. I didn't go to James's house. Didn't go to Kirk's house. I'm sure there would have been interesting stories there, but I felt that like Jason, that'll be a way in to him. And so, yes, I got him shooting the hoops, um, showing me different things around, his collections of various things. I just felt like that would give him a little bit. I knew he would never get equal time with all of them, but I knew it would give him something else because, and this is actually a credit to him. Jason said this to me. He said he came in and recorded his bass parts in for the Black Album in 3 weeks or under 3 weeks. Now, I'm going to point out that like that is some amazing playing, complicated stuff, and he said it with like almost like a craftsman's pride. You know what I mean? Like somebody who had crafted like a fine woodwork table or something. That he came in and did his parts efficiently and effectively, and brought that in. I think you could see some of that in the film when James is sitting with him and they're working out some things, and Lars was always watching what he was doing. But I think part of what makes the Black Album great is Jason's contribution to that album, and it's very audible on that album. And so yeah, props to Jason. We love Jason Newsted.
We love Jason Newsted. Love you, man. I've been to his art shows. I saw his Chop House band out in California a few times. When I was struggling in 2016, I asked him, Jason, what's your key to happiness?
Mm-hmm.
And my license plate right out there, New York State, is REPEL, REPELL. So
Yeah.
without flinching, he went into what each letter of that means. So read, eat, play, exercise, laugh, love. So when I have my
Yeah.
suicide prevention chats, I incorporate Jason Newsted and Metallica, and he would describe each letter. Right now I'm the same fighting weight as it was back when we did the Black Album. It's what you eat, and play. You got to have some fun. You got to exercise, but got to get those juices going when you laugh. I laugh every day. That really keeps the mind. I'll
Perfect.
queue up a Chris Farley fucking Beverly Hills Ninja or whatever to get some smiles going. But love, I think love is the most important thing. Loving, easier said than done, to love yourself and to love others. But when you
Yeah.
lead with love, um, just shout out to Jason. And someday, when I'll pull it, Lars,
Yeah.
when I have Jason on, I'm absolutely gonna name drop you. And when I Ask No One Festival is the premier Western New York hard rock heavy metal festival. Would love to have Das Moose come through or you shoot some pictures or some videos. Who knows someday, right?
Why not? Absolutely. I love it up there. I was in it's not really not just upstate, but Western New York. I was there a few years ago. I took my kids to see Paul McCartney in Syracuse at the Carrier Dome, and I was there to interview Jason Newsted a few years ago. He is a resident of the Finger Lakes area,
Yeah,
and
Skinny Atlas. Yeah.
yeah, and he and I went to his home there and his lovely wife Nicole, and Jason greeted me and couldn't have been warmer and nicer. And so I have a lot of fond memories, including another one from Buffalo, New York, when I was there. This goes back even a few more years when I was filming Lewis Black. He played the State Theater in Buffalo,
Okay.
and it was it was I ultimately made some concert films with Lewis, but we were there, and what I remember about that was that after the State Theater, we went out to there was a like a Western kind of bar that had a one of those mechanical bull things in it. And we went there and we all had a few drinks and tried the mechanical bull out. I'm not sure if I remember Lewis Black doing it. I think he didn't, but like when I got on it and got thrown off the thing right quick,
Yeah.
he would laugh about that. And then we all went onto the bus and had some drinks. It was really fun there. We had a great time. So yeah, Buffalo, all upstate New York, all good with me. I know I'm a New Yorker. Now people think people from New York only think about New York. Well, no, I love upstate New York. I was my dad used to take me for drives up there. I went to Corning and to Dunkirk and to Buffalo and Rochester. He took me to. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot about up there, and I always enjoyed it.
One of the most underrated food towns. It's the city of good neighbors. We love our Bills. My wife is from Rockland County, Bardonia there, so she got a little bit of that accent. Adam, thank you so much, brother.
Mhm.
Means a
So
lot.
thank you, brother.
Fucking
Kevin, great interview. Thank you so much.
yes, and to our viewers to subscribe, that's a $10 donation from me to AFSP. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay hungry, and stay heavy. Happy Halloween, brother.
That's all. Thank you. Take care, everybody.